Hey, Andrew, welcome to the School for Humanity.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Andrew, so diving right into what you're up to in the world, can you explain why you're driven to start Venture for America?
Well, back in 2010 and 11, I was the CEO and president of the country's largest GMAT prep company. So I saw all of these very smart, ambitious young people becoming bankers, consultants, and lawyers, and many of them weren't very happy. And so I thought to myself, wow, this seems really, really broken and it could use a fix. So I started imagining, well, if I don't think that everyone should become a banker, consultant, lawyer, what should they do, ideally? And I was myself a corporate attorney for 5 months before leaving to start a business, and I found that to be a very difficult but invigorating set of experiences. So I said, the ideal use of their talents, in my opinion, would be to head to regions that weren't prospering, like New Orleans or Detroit or Baltimore or Cleveland, and help companies grow or maybe even start businesses. So that was the original vision. And what I realized was that if you provided a path and an option for someone, then they would take it. It's just right now you have a lot of money being thrown at people to become some things and not others. So my goal was to create a path for young people to learn how to build businesses in cities around the country. And this was back in 2011. So I left my job to start Venture for America then.
I emailed you earlier this morning. I'm not sure if you got this note saying I wish this was something I heard about when I graduated from college, which was 2011. So totally resonate with the mission you guys are creating at Venture for America. And I'd love to know if this was started almost with your own personal journey of wishing you had this option when you graduated from school.
Yeah, very much so. When I graduated from Brown in the mid 90s, I had no clue what to do, so I went to law school and then found out law school clarifies very little. And then I became a corporate attorney for, again, 5 months and thought it was a terrible job. So Venture for America is the path that I wish it existed. And it turns out, like you, a lot of people wish it had existed.
Hmm.
So I felt pretty certain that it was going to be a win-win-win where the people would be happier and more productive, the regions and businesses would grow, and our society and economy would benefit if we didn't have so much talent doing the same things in the same places.
How would you describe the current paradigm of life after college?
Well, right now it's interesting, man. It's even evolved since 2011 and 2012 when I got started. So my original paradigm was that if you're an upwardly mobile college graduate, you got recruited heavily by one of six things: banking, consulting, law, academia, med school, or technology, and then the seventh might be Teach for America. And so I thought, hey, there are these very clearly laid out 6 or 7 paths for people, and we need to create another path for them. But since 2011, even, some of those paths have started to break down, where certainly the banks and consulting firms still hire a ton of people, but it's probably not as robust as it was a number of years ago. Law school still takes a lot of people, but it's falling out of favor because people realize it's not a great investment. Tech companies have definitely ratcheted it way up.
Mm-hmm.
So what's happened is that your 20s have become even less clear now than they were because what used to be relatively structured paths have fallen away, and many 20-something-year-olds are kind of groping for a replacement or an alternative.
What is that career and lifestyle alternative that millennials are interested in?
Well, I mean, they want work they're excited about. They want to work with people they like. They want to feel a sense of purpose and belonging. And one of the things that I'm so excited about with Venture for America is that about 20 to 25% of our alums have started a business. I think a lot of millennials would love to take their interest and translate it into a new business, sort of like you have.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a very, very difficult path, and it's not getting any easier. So millennials very much want to build things, and I wrote a book on that topic, but the environment has made it harder and harder for them to do so.
Why should smart people be building things instead of going to a career on Wall Street?
Well, I mean, at this point, the careers on Wall Street are starting to become more and more precarious themselves. I have many, many friends on Wall Street who are trying to talk their kids out of following in their footsteps. They think a lot of the jobs are going to be automated away.
Mhm.
Wall Street's actually very, very prone to automation because it's a lot of highly numerate and logical tasks. And they're such rich organizations that they really love to automate things. Like they're very harsh and unforgiving. Uh, so Wall Street might not have the rosy financial future and upside that it did a generation ago. But more than that, if you do get involved with a startup or build your own business, you'll have a chance to stretch and grow different parts of yourself. And I've had that experience myself as an entrepreneur, where most financial jobs are pretty narrowly functional, and you become something of like a a widget, if you will. Like you've got a couple of things that you're really good at or are knowledgeable about. Whereas building something, starting a business, joining a startup, you end up becoming a broader person and generalist, which I think most people want.
What are colleges doing right now to prepare students for entrepreneurship?
Well, it's interesting. Entrepreneurship classes and coursework and majors have proliferated. Entrepreneurship centers have opened all over the place. During the last 20 years, though, private company ownership has actually gone down among 18 to 30-year-olds. So I'm personally of the mind that studying entrepreneurship is very much a mixed bag. I've had young people say to me, hey, now that I've taken that class, I feel like starting a business involves all of this stuff, and it's actually more daunting than when I got started. The best way to train someone to start a business is really to put them into the action in a real enterprise that involves customers and money and the rest of it. Because studying it as an intellectual discipline doesn't really get you there. I liken it to if I spend a lot of time with you studying how to serve a tennis ball and then ask you at the end to serve a tennis ball, you're not going to know how to serve a tennis ball.
For sure.
Whereas if I put you out and say, hey, spend the day just whacking the ball, you might actually have a better shot at developing a serve. There isn't any perfect way to train entrepreneurs, but the more action oriented, the better.
Why do you think recent grads are starting to value a career of impact versus a six-figure salary?
I mean, part of it is that they've seen the six-figure salaries evaporate. Part of it's that they've seen their older siblings and friends not like their jobs a whole lot and become really overworked and miserable. And they say, hey, if I can figure out an alternative to that, I should try and do that. Part of it is a desire for purpose, where they see that the world is not all it's not going all that well in some respects, and many young people are idealistic enough to think they can have a positive impact.
So I'm actually from Pittsburgh, and I was expecting you to name Pittsburgh in that category of, I think you said Baltimore, Cleveland, Detroit. And I was really immersed in the startup ecosystem there when I was still living out in that area. And I'd love to know, from your opinion, why do you think small startup cities like Cleveland, Detroit, not sure if Pittsburgh's still in that category or if they've emerged out of it, have trouble attracting top young talent?
Well, Pittsburgh is a great place. I should have mentioned Pittsburgh. I'm actually heading there next month for the Thrival Festival. I'm speaking about artificial intelligence.
Yeah, I know. Do you know Bobby as well?
Yeah. Bobby's a great guy and a good friend.
Oh, awesome.
So Pittsburgh is more mature and advanced than some of the other markets that Venture for America's in, but I think it still fits. It's a great place. It's a great place to start and build a company. It's got awesome talent, reasonable costs. A lot of mature companies have opened offices there. So I think Pittsburgh is a little further along, but I'd put in the same category. And Pittsburgh has a better time attracting talent than some of the other cities. I think talented young people get attracted to critical mass very much because they want to be around other people like themselves, and they also want a wealth of options if something doesn't suit them. It's like if you go to a one company town and you sour on that company, then you're going to have to move, and young people don't really like that as a profile.
Gotcha. And I'd love to switch the conversation now to what you've created at Venture for America. So, could you just start off describing what is Venture for America?
Venture for America is a nonprofit fellowship for recent college graduates, sort of like you in 2011, Andrew, that want to learn how to build things and uh, become positive contributors and entrepreneurs. So we recruit. This past year, we recruited about 182 young people from maybe 1,400 applicants, uh, and then we train them for 5 weeks at Brown University, where I went with McKinsey and IDEO and Flatiron School and others. And then they go and work in a startup in one of 17 or 18 cities around the country for 2 years. They go with friends, so the average cohort size might be about 10 people, and many of them live together. So you kick butt at a startup for 2 years, and at the end of those 2 years, you can become a manager and leader at that company. But we also have a small seed fund to invest in startups that our alums found. So I'm heading to Detroit next week to the accelerator where there are 6 teams that have started companies, and we have a small seed fund to invest in companies started by alums. And some of our more established alums have gone on to start multi-million-dollar companies that employ dozens of people. So we are a national entrepreneurship fellowship program for recent college graduates with a focus on cities that are not like the major coastal hubs.
I'd love to walk through the Venture for America journey, and you hit on some of these components. And this is when someone gets accepted, and it's the first is you're matched with one of your partner companies, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
And then you would attend a 5-week training camp at Brown.
Yes.
And then you would work for that startup for 2 years.
Yes,
Uh,
typically.
and what type of companies do you see your fellows working for?
Well, they run the gamut. If you go to our website, you can see the hundreds of companies that are hiring through VFA in Pittsburgh, Detroit, Cleveland, Baltimore, Providence, etc. So I'm happy to say these companies are really cool and they're solving a range of problems. A lot of our fellows join looking to get into healthcare technology or even renewables, and they can find a company that's working on that problem in one of our cities. So you join that company for 2 years, and you're moving to the city with your new best friends. Then after the end of year one, another cohort shows up, and you become the big brother or sister to like the newbies. And then at the end of 2 years, you're typically a manager or leader, and then you have a chance to stay on as a key contributor on the team. So that happens about 40 or 50% of the time with our fellows, where they stay on at the companies beyond the 2 years.
That's awesome. And you also see, I saw some stats on your site. You may launch a company and 17% of alumni start a company. You may become a leader at that startup and 73% of alumni continue to work in the startup space. You may join an established company, or the lowest percentage it sounded like is attend a graduate program, which was 6%.
Yeah, that'll probably go up a little bit over time, but it's something I'm really proud of is that people go to grad school oftentimes because they're not that pumped about what they're doing. And so if you're excited about your job opportunities, then the desire to go to business school is typically lower.
So as a individual, a recent college graduate, how do you know if Venture for America is right for you?
Well, a lot of it is based upon what kind of work you want to do. If you want to work for a small growing company in Pittsburgh or Baltimore or Cleveland or Detroit, then we're perfect. I mean, it's like you can get matched up with the top startups in a particular city. You get this training from the top firms in the country. You're trained with a bunch of the other top prospects in the country. You have access to a seed fund. So if the sort of work you want to do is build a business or work at a startup, then we're a slam dunk. A lot of people come to us with more social motivations where they're looking to make a positive impact, and they have an instinct that getting exposure to industry will help them get there. And we take people like that too. So anyone who wants to learn how to build something become a manager, leader, and grow a business, we'd be a great fit for.
Yeah, I'm just once again, wishing I heard about this in 2011 as I was so in that space of I actually interned on Wall Street and then I almost went in the complete opposite direction of volunteering for the Peace Corps. And then I eventually kind of found my middle ground, which seems like you guys have created that perfect solution for students who may be on that same path that I was on.
Well, you are exactly the sort of person we're looking for, man. And I wish you had heard of us in 2012 because I'm sure you would have been great. We do have refugees from Wall Street banks who interned and were like, this is not for me. So apologies for not doing a better job of awareness building.
That actually was my next question. My head was around how do you typically see students hear about you? Is it referrals or do you have really solid relationships with career service centers set up across the states?
A little bit of everything. We send our alums back to campus every year so that many of the fellows know people still on campus. We have hundreds of recruitment events on college campuses. One fun thing, Andrew, is a movie came out about us last year that's now on Netflix called Generation Startup, and some people find out about us that way. It's a documentary that follows six of our fellows around Detroit for a year and a half with an Oscar-winning director. So, there are different ways we get the word out, but a lot of it is just boots on the ground, sending people to schools.
That's awesome. What was the name of that Netflix documentary? I'm going to check that out.
Yeah, you should. It's called Generation Startup. I have
Awesome.
a cameo early on, so.
All right. Awesome. Yeah, and if you're not connected with Allegheny College, it's kind of random side note. That's my alumni. They're based Northwestern PA. I can totally connect you with their career service center.
Yeah, we'd like that. Please do send that email. We'll connect them to the talent team.
Awesome. And I'd love to, end this conversation around painting a picture of the future that you want to create and venture for America. So how do you measure success in life?
Well, in terms of how I measure my own success, it's really about doing work I'm proud of and maximizing my own positive impact and potential. So just feeling like I'm always stretching and growing. My vision for the future is that people are able to build things that matter to them, and that the barriers to entrepreneurship are much, much lower than they are now. I think it's going to be necessary in the coming years because of the increasing impact of technology and automation. It's going to make it all the more vital that we have people coming up with new enterprises and organizations and ways to make a positive difference that aren't supported potentially by the current set of financial incentives.
So for anyone who's listening to this interview, what's the one thing you hope they take away from your story?
I tend to be a pretty practical guy, so it's mainly, hey, if you are the sort of person that should apply to Venture for America, please apply. If you know someone who should apply, let them know. But in terms of my own journey, it's really just to ask more of yourself in your career, because I have so many friends from law school that just kept going down the path and weren't happy. And we got together, and I have to say, a lot of them were like, how did you do what you did? Mm-hmm. And I looked back and thought, part of it was that I saw the danger as not being failure, but I saw the danger as having years pass and looking in the mirror and wonder why I never tried to do something more. And so if you reframe the way risk looks, it's actually very helpful. The risk isn't that you're going to starve, because most none of us are going to starve. The risk is really that you look back and say, why didn't I try to do something more that I was going to be proud of and excited about years down the road?
So if everything you're working on comes to fruition in 20 years, what does our world look like?
Well, in 20 years, if everything goes well according to my plan, we're living in a realm of abundance. People are able to build enterprises based on their core values, and that we measure each other not by how much value we have in the financial marketplace, but how much value we have in a much more holistic human way, and that people are able to live very fruitful lives by pursuing things that matter to them as opposed to pursuing things that the market seems to value highly.
I love it. My last question is around what keeps you going every day. Entrepreneurship has a lot of highs and a lot of lows. And I discover, especially with social entrepreneurs, they have this deep why that allows them to keep on going even in those rough times. And what is yours that keeps you motivated and going?
A lot of the time, Andrew, I reflect on how pumped I would be if you went to like 21 or 25-year-old me and was like, here's your situation. I'd be like, no way. That's unbelievable. And then I think to myself, man, I really need to make the most of this. When I started Venture for America, I had this deep belief that I could build something positive if I busted my ass and worked really hard for 5 years plus, which ended up being correct. And I also had this instinct that if I didn't do it, it just wasn't going to happen. Like it felt like I had this responsibility to build it because I had this very clear vision for it. And I knew it wasn't going to happen if I didn't put my head down and work for it. So that's what keeps me going, is this feeling, especially now, that I've been given some very, very rare opportunities to have a positive impact. And if I don't do my best to build on that and capitalize on that, then it would be really shameful. It would just be such a waste of an opportunity. And 21-year-old me could never have dreamed about the opportunities that I have now.
I love it. And lastly, if there's someone listening that wants to get in touch with you, whether to collaborate, like someone in a career service center, or maybe there's someone who's in college right now who's interested in applying, what's the best way to go about doing that?
Sure. My email is andrew@ventureforamerica.org. It's pretty easy. People can just ping me there. I'm also on Twitter at Andrew Yang VFA. And so pretty easy to contact on both of those.
And the website, if someone wanted to apply?
It's ventureforamerica.org. And the name of the documentary, again, is Generation Startup.
Perfect. Well, Andrew, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciative of this. And I'm looking forward to connecting you to Allegheny and inspiring more millennials.
Andrew, keep up the great work. And yeah, we got a lot of work to do. Let's go out and do it.
Thank you.